Welcome to Fantasy Audiobook, Chapter 46. No Secrets, The End of the Platinum Immortal Cultivators. Hearing Irene's words, Zhang Hao was obviously stunned. But they quickly thought of the reason. It should be that they knew their growth process. So I thought that I held a secret in my hands that could make the civilization of the planet grow crazily. After all, the growth rate of Zhang Hao's civilization is really terrifying. It's not surprising that they have this guess. Zhang Hao just didn't expect that they would dare to bluntly release water in this kind of official assessment for this reason. But this kind of deal, Zhang Hao doesn't need it. And the secrets of his growth all come from the Saiyan race itself, so we can't let him start again with another civilization and the environment of their planet. Also not suitable for the growth of the Saiyan race. Saiyan civilization cannot be born without 10 times the gravity. Waste star. It's the secret of Zhang Hao's civilization, but Zhang Hao can't say, transforming your planet into a waste star, and forcibly exerting 10 times the gravity on him. So Zhang Hao expressed his true thoughts. Actually, there is no secret to my growth. It depends on the civilized race itself, and this race must be born under extremely harsh conditions. The resources must be poor, the environment must be harsh, and the gravity of the planet must be 10 times greater. As for the method for the rapid growth of planetary civilization, it doesn't actually exist. Hearing Zhang Hao's words, Irene had expected it. After all, if she held such a huge secret in her hands, she wouldn't be able to easily reveal it. Because they have already determined that Zhang Hao has a method to make the civilization of the planet grow rapidly, so no matter what Zhang Hao explains, they will not believe it. And how could there be so many coincidences, as if it was tailor-made for Zhang Hao? How could there be such a race? Zhang Hao also knew that it was difficult to explain to them. After all, he didn't believe it. After all, explaining a coincidence is most like an excuse. I knew that you would not reveal your secret so easily. Since you are unwilling to resolve it in such a peaceful way, then I will only be offended. Following Irene's order, the cultivators who were watching from a distance moved. Zhang Hao knew that fighting was inevitable, so he didn't keep his strength anymore. So Amosi was also ordered to attack. Amosi looked at the immortal cultivator suspended in midair in the distance, with a calm face, but could feel a sense of oppression. These enemies in front of you. It was even more difficult than the interstellar pirates he faced. And Brawley next to him looked eager to try. After all, for Brawley, who is a battle madman, the stronger the enemy, the more able to arouse her fighting spirit. There are also platinum-level combat units on the opposite side, and the number is about 30. Amosi can see the team of about 100 people in front of him through the eyes of the combat power test. The battles he has already surpassed the sum of the previous star robbers. Seeing the immortal cultivator approaching, Amosi nodded. Amosi, who got permission, rushed towards the cultivator like a streamer. Open black lens bracket, furious close black lens bracket. Amosi's already burly figure suddenly became 1 meter taller. After an adaptive upgrade, the Frieza Legion protective suit has become a general-purpose Frieza universe. The jet system on the back can assist Saiyan to fly in the atmosphere. So Brawley rushed into the ranks of cultivators like a comet. In the horrified eyes of the immortal cultivator, Brawley punched violently. Bang! The ear-piercing loud noise echoed throughout the battlefield. A male immortal cultivator actually bent the long sword in his hand directly into a machete, and was directly repelled and flew tens of meters, and finally hit the ground like a shell. If it wasn't for the man to activate the aura in time, he might have been instantly killed by Brawley. But the spiritual weapon in his hand was still bent into the shape of a crescent. Eileen looked at the scene in front of her with a calm expression. This has long been expected. After all, in the battle with the Star Thief, Brawley had already demonstrated extremely terrifying fighting power, but he did not expect him to be in such a short period of time. It actually broke through to the platinum level again. The male immortal cultivator slowly got up from the ground, exchanged a spiritual weapon and flew into the sky. Because at this moment the battle in the sky has already begun. The Frieza protective suit, because of the new jet system, made Raleig's flight speed faster. As for the immortal cultivators who could only fly with spiritual weapons, an extremely embarrassing situation occurred. Can't catch up. They couldn't catch up to Brawley, who was speeding across the battlefield like a streamer. He could only let him smash one gold-level immortal cultivator on the ground one after another. In the end, there were only 30 platinum-level immortal cultivators left on the field. A total of 70 cultivators. In less than 2 minutes, they were all smashed into the ground. So the rest of the people looked at each other and no longer retained their strength. In Vegeta's sky, countless beautiful lights suddenly appeared. The tens of meters long sword slowly floated in the air, sending out bursts of terrifying fluctuations. The fairy spirits several feet high roared ferociously in the air, and some immortal cultivators launched secret techniques, preparing to affect Brawly's spirit. But Brawly is an elite warrior in the Saiyan civilization. How tough the spirit is, how could it be affected by this illusion? So he raised his arm towards the platinum-level immortal cultivator who had activated the illusion. Open black lens bracket blasting bombardment close black lens bracket. The huge blue ball of light shot towards the immortal cultivator at high speed, but it was just a second before it was about to hit. Blocked by an enlarged giant shield. As the white light dissipated, the cultivator behind him sneered. At the same time, behind MOC, a huge sword blade slashed straight down. Brawly turned and flew, dodging the giant sword's attack. The transformed giant sword fell to the ground, and a huge crack suddenly appeared on the ground. Vegeta's surface was cut open like tofu. At this time, another long knife also arrived. MOC stood on the high wall of the fortress, watching the scene coldly. Even in Vegeta's side of the world, there was the sound of thunder, and bolts of lightning struck towards Brawly, who was flying at high speed. It just didn't hit. It seems that Brawly has fallen into a hard battle, but MOC understands that the ability Brawly has shown now is just the tip of the iceberg of his strength. Open black lens bracket war enthusiasm close black lens bracket. With the fervor of war launched, Brawly's combat power also increased from 600,000 to 1.8 million. Looking at the huge magic weapon that chased him to the sky and to the ground. A hideous grin appeared on Brawly's face. The moment he dodged the slash of the giant sword, his fist swung out suddenly. Boom! Visible to the naked eye, countless fine cracks appeared on the giant sword, and then suddenly shattered. The flying debris fell to the ground of planet Vegeta, like a huge hailstone. The fragments of the giant sword smashed deep pits on the ground. The long knife that was stabbed afterward was also broken in two by Brawly's foot on the ground. The entire battlefield suddenly fell silent. Although these spirit weapons, every platinum-level cultivator has several handles. But every artifact is connected to their spirit. As a result, the platinum immortal cultivator whose spirit weapon was shattered suddenly spat out a mouthful of blood, and his strength dropped by 20% in an instant. Although relying on spells, they can reach about 17 times the fighting power of their bodies. But MOC is now 30 times stronger. Therefore, due to the huge gap in strength, the spiritual weapons they controlled were directly shattered. The remaining platinum-level immortal cultivators did not stop attacking because the two spiritual weapons were destroyed. Instead, some people were left to hold Brawly, while the rest rushed to Vegeta Fortress. Brawly looked at the departing immortal cultivators without any worry on his face, because he knew that the next thing was the end of those immortal cultivators. At this moment, MOC, looking at the immortal cultivator flying towards him at a high speed, showed a ferocious smile. He doesn't retain his strength like Brawly, and he will destroy the enemy directly with a shot. Chapter 47. As the cultivator approached quickly, MOC also activated his talents and newly mastered abilities. Open black lens bracket war enthusiasm close black lens bracket. Open black lens bracket 5 times Kaioken close black lens bracket. 60000x3x5. 900,000 combat power. Because Great Ape needs a full moon to achieve transformation, although the artificial moon can be used, it will consume a lot of ki. It is equivalent to reducing the combat power first, and then transforming into a Great Ape to increase the combat power. And after the Great Ape is used, there will be a period of weakness period if the enemy attacks Vegeta at this time. Is extremely deadly, but the 10 times Kaioken is different. The only limitation is the physical endurance, and it can be adjusted according to the actual situation on the battlefield. If only 5 times Kaioken is used, it is completely within the range of MOC the body can bear. And Brawly, after using Fury, will enter a berserk state, and cannot use the 10 times Kaioken that can only be activated in a rational state. And at the current stage, both Kaioken and Fury have a 10-fold upper limit, so Brawly prefers to use the more familiar state of Fury. This is also the real reason why he didn't use Kaioken when he was fighting the immortal cultivator. Open black lens bracket Qigong bomb close black lens bracket. A blue light ball formed in Amosi's hands, and then, like a medium-sized naval gun, bombarded the flying immortal cultivator. The 5 immortal cultivators were immediately sent flying backwards. Although the cultivator had expected that Amosi's attack power was very powerful, he used a defensive magic weapon right away. However, he was still hit by the powerful attack force of the Qigong bomb, and flew to the ground, and suddenly spewed out a mouthful of blood. The 5 people looked at each other. They both saw the horror in each other's eyes. So he nodded, and put a pill with 3 patterns into his mouth. Sanwen lifting pill. It can burst out about 6 times the strength of the body in a short period of time, but after using it, there will be a 3-day period of weakness and the strength will drop by 70%. Platinum tier only. Because the gold level can only bear 2 lines, that is, the 2-line lifting pill with 4 times the aura boost. If you take the 3-line lifting pill, your body will collapse because you can't bear the powerful aura. But the diamond level immortal cultivator took the Sanwen lifting spirit pill, but it had no effect. As the spiritual energy in the pill exploded, the spiritual energy of the 5 immortal cultivators turned red. Amosi looked at the changing combat power value, his eyes slightly raised, and the strength of these immortal cultivators in front of him had already exceeded 10 times that of the general platinum level. But he didn't panic. Open black lens bracket war enthusiasm close black lens bracket. Open black lens bracket 10 times Kaioken close black lens bracket. 60,000 x 3 x 10. At this time, Amosi's combat power has exceeded 1 million. Open black lens bracket Qigong bomb close black lens bracket. A larger blue light sphere than before was condensed in Amosi's hands, and the light emitted made the originally dim fortress shine like sunlight. In the blue light are Amosi's indifferent pupils. The ball of light enveloped all 5 people at a terrifying speed. The huge spiritual weapon transformed by the 5 immortal cultivators was instantly shattered under the bombardment of the blue light ball, and the 5 immortal cultivators behind them were also vaporized. Everything happens in a very short time. Before Irene could react, the 5 immortal cultivators had disappeared on the battlefield. Looking at the scene in front of her, Irene showed a shocked expression. Also at the platinum level, Amosi killed 5 opponents of the same level in one blow. Are you kidding me? Although she knows Zhang Hao's Saiyan civilization, she can use abilities to multiply her combat effectiveness. But I didn't expect to actually face it. The attack power is so terrible. In her opinion, even if Amosi and Brawley shot at the same time, one person would have to face 15 cultivators of the same level. 15 against 1, she has no chance of losing. Looking at the scene in front of him, this made Irene, who is super civilized, feel a kind of sincere fear. In Aaron's opinion, if Zhang Hao's civilization grows up, it is very likely, not possible, that they will definitely be trampled under their feet. So Irene became more and more eager for the secret of Zhang Hao's civilization growth. She summoned all the platinum level cultivators back, because every platinum level cultivator may break through to the diamond level in the future. Just now she lost 5 in an instant. It was already too much for her to bear. At this time, Irene finally made up her mind to let the diamond level cultivator join the battlefield. After all, the platinum level of the same level, in front of Zhang Hao's platinum level, can only be killed in seconds. Thinking of this, Irene no longer has any hesitation. At this moment, Brawley has returned to the Vegeta fortress, standing side by side with Amosi on the high wall. Didn't my god say that as long as we defeat the enemy? How did you kill them all in seconds? Brawley looked at Amosi with a cold face and asked his own question. The enemy is still gathering now, how can it be said to be defeated? Hearing Amosi's answer, Brawley nodded thoughtfully. He thought it would be all right to beat this group of immortal cultivators with all kinds of tricks to the point of losing their combat effectiveness. So in the battle just now, I still kept my hand. But then they felt the people on the battlefield, so that both of them couldn't help feeling a heavy pressure. Diamond, Brawley looked at Amosi and asked. Amosi nodded. It seems that the powerful enemies that my god refers to should be those few people. 3 diamond levels. Irene sent out all the diamond ranks. After all, in her opinion, as long as she got the secret of Zhang Hao's civilization, she could also achieve Zhang Hao's terrifying increase. So I've decided to put all my eggs in one basket. 300,000 fighting power. This is the limit of Amosi and others after using the ability, but this is only the normal state of the diamond level. Amosi looked at the long series of combat power numbers on the lens. His face was serious. This was the first time he had faced an opponent with such a powerful combat power. And they also understand that the combat power of the civilization in front of them is stronger than the huge civilization they encountered last time, with a combat power of 300,000. Plus about 10 times the increase in combat power. If you are not careful enough this time, it may even lead to the collapse of civilization. When Zhang Hao saw the diamond-level cultivator, although he was surprised, his face remained as calm as ever. For the fighting power of Saiyan civilization, there is one last hole card. He just didn't expect to encounter a diamond-level combat unit in just the first assessment. It is still a terrible civilization of cultivating immortals. Sure enough, in order to obtain the so-called secret of the growth of civilization, they have fallen into madness. It was at this time. The only female immortal cultivator among the 3 diamond immortal cultivators spoke. Zhang Hao, I will give you one last chance. If you go to war, it will very likely lead to the destruction of your civilization, so you'd better think carefully. Irene persuaded again, but she was also afraid. If Zhang Hao's Saiyan civilization is really destroyed, he will therefore bury this secret forever. In this way, the loss of these geniuses is too great. So he spoke again. But Zhang Hao's answer was almost the same as the first time. Then don't blame me. As Irene said, she ordered 3 diamond-level cultivators to launch an attack. Amosi looked at the crazily rising combat power data on the combat power glasses, and felt a heavy sense of oppression, but the expression on his face was still indifferent. At this time, he was already planning to fight with all his might. Under Brawley's gaze, an imperceptible trace of green slowly appeared in Amosi's pupils, and then became more and more intense. The body also slowly gushes out a golden breath. Brawley had a calm face. Looking at Brawley, who started to change, there was also a hint of surprise in his eyes. Because the value on the combat power glasses began to climb like crazy, and it has exceeded the limit they usually use. It was at this time. Starbridge began to close. 15 minutes is over. Zhang Hao passed the first test. Looking at the 3 immortal cultivators who left, the golden aura on Amosi's body began to dissipate, and her hair and pupils also turned into their usual appearance. Brawley stood by Amosi's side, watching the 3 immortal practitioners retreating in the distance. A trace of coldness flashed in his eyes. Chapter 48. At this time, Irene didn't know that she was lucky enough to escape. Still thinking about what he saw just now. What was that touch of gold just now? Because of the relatively long distance, Irene only saw a golden aura emanating from Amosi's body. No changes in Amosi's pupils were found. So he began to regret secretly that he should have dispatched diamond-level immortal cultivators directly in the first place. In his opinion, use 30 platinum-level immortal cultivators and 70 gold immortal cultivators to deal with 2 platinum-level Saiyans. It is already an extremely exaggerated thing. But I didn't expect so many people to be held back by one Saiyan, and the 5 immortal cultivators who attacked another Saiyan were instantly killed. The strength displayed by Zhang Hao's Saiyan civilization can be called terrifying. With the end of the assessment, Zhang Hao and the remaining 9 students walked out of the Star Wars opening room together. At this time, Aaron's face was very ugly. However, due to the occasion, he restrained his emotions and showed a calm look. It's just that the expression on his face is still a little stiff and unnatural. And this time Zhang Hao's group, including Zhang Hao, a total of 3 people passed the first test. That's why Irene put her focus on Zhang Hao. In other teams, there is usually only one person, and there are very few too. There are even 2 groups, and none of them passed. Looking at your expression, it seems that you passed, Lu Ruyan said with a smile. When Zhang Hao heard Lu Ruyan's words, he turned around and nodded. Congratulations to you too. Because of the ease shown by Ruyan Lu, Zhang Hao knew that she had also passed the examination successfully. But I didn't feel too surprised. After all, Lu Ruyan was the 2nd place in the comprehensive examination of the 9th district last time. Then the 2 returned to the waiting area together. Wait for the next assessment to start. Because even with a group of 80 people, the first round of assessment would take more than an hour. So Lu Ruyan observed the assessment situation of everyone present. It was found that more students participated in the assessment of other universities, and the students who had just failed in Qingbei had already begun to consider which university to choose for the next assessment. But Zhang Hao's eyes always stayed on Los Piccolos. Zhang Hao knew that in the final assessment, he would definitely face this man, and her strength must be stronger than the Irene he met just now. At the same time, an operation against the Li family has also begun. Zhongbei, Li's independent building. As the most powerful family in Zhongbei, the Li family's independent building covers a very large area, and there is an environmental simulation system inside the building. The simulation here is not a simple holographic projection, but a reproduction based on the real environment. The 4 seasons of spring, summer, autumn and winter are distributed on 4 different floors of the building. The manpower and material resources spent in it are simply unimaginable. But for a huge family like the Li family, it is not difficult. At this moment, the patriarch of the Li family, Li Juns, is on the autumn floor, looking at the information in his hand and lost in thought. Then, as if thinking of something, he said to the middle-aged man in his 40s. Isn't today the day to be admitted to the university? How is the arrangement of Shuibao? Hearing Li Juns's inquiry, the middle-aged man bowed slightly, and said, Young master's affairs have been arranged properly, but even if young master really enters Qingbei, what will happen next? The man wanted to continue, but what he saw were Li Juns's dark eyes. Suddenly, his heart constricted, as if bitten by a poisonous snake. After all, no one knows better how powerful the Li family is in Zhongbei. Moreover, Li Juns doted on Li Shuibao, his only son, very much. So he almost didn't want to hear any negative remarks about Li Shuibao. The man sighed in his heart, thinking, if the Li family declines in the future, it must have something to do with Li Shuibao. The young master can enter Qingbei, and the Li family's status in Zhongbei will be even higher in the future. The man had no choice but to put it another way. Hearing the man's words, Li Juns's expression returned to the calmness just now. But at this moment, a communication request came from the brain. Li Juns frowned slightly, because everyone knew that it was his breakfast time, and he would not be contacted unless there was something urgent. But still turned on the brain. Chairman, something happened. People from the Zhongbei Taxation Bureau broke into the company just now, and they still have a search warrant in their hands. The vice president of Lija Energy Company said to Li Juns with a flustered expression. Originally, Li Juns planned to scold the vice president and disturb his rest at this time. But after hearing the man's words, the anger in his heart was instantly extinguished, countless thoughts flashed through his mind instantly, and he could no longer maintain his calmness just now. Be clear, what's going on? Just 5 minutes ago, the Zhongbei Tax Administration directly broke into the company's administrative building, saying that our company was involved in tax evasion and malicious competition. So they broke into the general manager's office involuntarily, because they had a search warrant in their hands, so even if they notified Zhongbei's law enforcement department, it would have no effect. The man had an anxious expression on his face. The 2 largest pillar industries of the Li family, one is energy and the other is the interstellar navigation business. In Zhongbei, more than 70% of the energy business is controlled by the Li family. From large shuttles for interstellar voyages to small flying cars, the energy supply is inseparable from the Li family, but huge profits will also bring high taxes. But through bribery and other means, the Li family exempted about 90% of taxes. And the so-called free 10 points were actually given to the tax officers in charge of managing Zhongbei. Where's the group of people who were in charge of Zhongbei's taxation? Although he was anxious, Li Juns was also a person who had experienced big storms, so naturally he couldn't get himself into trouble. I've already contacted them, but they haven't responded. The person who was sent to investigate just now hasn't responded yet. Mr. Li, what should we do now? Hearing the man's answer, Li Juns's heart trembled, and he had a bad premonition that something big would happen in Zhongbei. You do your part first, and I'll take care of the rest. Because the Li family has been dominant in Zhongbei for many years, the entire Zhongbei almost has to give them face, not to mention the tax bureau came to investigate. It is the general routine inspection that has never happened. To come to their company with such a big fanfare this time, either they have absolute evidence, or someone is targeting the Li family. But Li Juns really couldn't think of who he offended, and he had such great energy. Just as he was thinking, the middle-aged man beside him spoke. Master, there are people from the Awakened Association. Along with them, there are also law enforcement officers from Zhongbei. They said they want the master to go back for investigation. Although it is said to be under investigation, it actually has the same meaning as arresting him. Thinking of this, Li Jun's couldn't help but think of when the Li family first entered the energy industry. At that time, in order to compete with other companies for energy mines, he sent his subordinates to kill many competitors. And the energy search team he hired, after discovering a huge amount of energy mines, was ordered by him to bury them deep in the mine. There were a total of 176 people including the miners. The purpose is to prevent the location of the energy mine from being leaked. In his opinion, there is almost no difference between executing some poor people and crushing a few bedbugs. After all, they can't even afford the smallest house. It is already very cheap for them to have a piece of land as a grave for them. There are more similar things, too many, so much that he is too lazy to think about it. After all, who cares about the life and death of the poor? He thought that one of the incidents had been exposed, so he rested his head on the chair behind him in an agitated mood, and began to think about countermeasures. Master, the law enforcers are still waiting for you downstairs. The middle-aged man saw that Li Jun's had closed his eyes, so he reminded him. Chapter 49. Hearing the middle-aged man's words, Li Jun's frowned, but still slowly stood up from the chair. Arrange the Awakened Association and law enforcement officers to the third reception room and tell them that I'll be right there. Hearing Li Jun's words, the middle-aged man sighed slightly, and walked down under the command. Li Family Independent Building, in the hall. You said that there will be no problems if we come to the Li family with great fanfare this time. If the Li family really wants to deal with us, our future life will be difficult. The one who spoke was the man Zhang Hao had met once in the Awakened Association, and he also told Zhang Hao about being targeted by the Li family. Hearing the man's question, the man leading the law enforcement team smiled slightly. It will be the Li family who will have a hard time in the future. Hearing the law enforcer's answer, the branch president of the Zhongbei Awakening Association couldn't help being stunned. But did not want to understand the reason. The master told you to wait in the third meeting room, he will be there soon. The middle-aged man said to the line of dignitaries, neither humble nor overbearing. After all, in Zhongbei, no one can be treated respectfully by the Li family. Even if you are the president of the Awakened Association and a law enforcement officer in Zhongbei. Seeing the man's reaction, the leader of the law enforcement officers sneered and said, Leader Li Jun's, please cooperate with us and come with us to the law enforcement department in Zhongbei. This is an arrest warrant. After finishing speaking, the enforcer raised a paper book in his hand. Today, with highly developed technology, paper documents are rare, but the arrest warrant in front of a middle-aged man is no longer in this category. Warrant. The eyes of the middle-aged man swept across the paper book. Thick and thin black characters were engraved into his pupils, and there was a seal of the Ministry of Law Enforcement on it. So the expression on his face suddenly froze. Including the servants who were busy all around, when they heard the words of the law enforcers, their faces showed horrified expressions. No longer caring about the so-called etiquette, they turned their eyes to this side. Jincheng, the university assessment venue. At this moment, Qingbei University's first round of assessment has all ended. A total of 476 people participated in the assessment. But only 68 people passed the first test. Not even a fraction of the participation in the assessment. The difficulty of entering Qingbei University can be seen. With the end of the assessment, Los Piccolos finally had time to ask Irene if he had obtained the secret of Zhang Hao's planetary growth. I failed. This was the first sentence Irene said. Because of his misjudgment, Zhang Hao was delayed for 15 minutes. Every time I think of this, Irene can't help feeling a pang of regret. After all, in his opinion, as long as they get Zhang Hao's secret, they can gain a firm foothold in Qingbei University without worrying about being stepped on by others. But because of her misjudgment, they didn't get the secret. What's going on? Los Piccolos asked in a low voice. Although Irene's strength is at a low level in Qingbei, what she is facing now is just an awakened person who has just awakened the planet. How could it be defeated? So Los Piccolos, looking at Irene's eyes, she couldn't help but change. After all, if you know this secret, you probably won't share it with others. Aaron looked at the eyes of several people. They naturally know what they are thinking. Fortunately, she was prepared and recorded the battle scenes with magic weapons. Seeing the battle scene, someone expressed the doubt in his heart. Why can the combat power of the civilization he created be multiplied so many times? When I finally killed your 5 immortal cultivators in a flash, the combat power was at least 30 times that of ordinary platinum. It even surpassed the diamond-level combat units of ordinary low to medium civilizations. When the others heard his exclamation, they couldn't help but nodded secretly. Generally, the diamond level of intermediate civilizations has only about 250,000 combat power, while some low-level civilizations have even less than 200,000. After all, powerful combat bodies like demons and dragons, with the same diamond level, can easily crush diamond-level knights and warriors. Hearing the discussion of several people, Los Piccolos frowned slightly. After all, it surpasses the body by 30 times. Not even his civilization could do it. Not even half of 30, so this made him look at Zhang Hao with hotter eyes. Because Zhang Hao's attention was hardly diverted from the inspectors, he quickly noticed the change in Los Piccolos' eyes. I sighed slightly in my heart. If they knew the truth, would they be more surprised than they are now? In the original assessment, there should be an assessment of the ability of battlefield command, but now Los Piccolos, after seeing the performance of Zhang Hao Saiyan civilization, can't wait. After all, his desire for power has reached an almost crazy level. Even though he is the chairman of the Star Alliance, an odd number, in Qingbei, he can't even reach the upper level, barely counting in the middle ranks. So he said to the remaining 68 people, this assessment should have been divided into 3 times, but the assessment of battlefield command ability and the final assessment will be combined in the next assessment. Hearing what Los Piccolos said, surprise appeared on the faces of the others. After all, the Qingbei assessment is divided into 3 times over the years. This change is to let Qingbei understand everyone's abilities more clearly. After all, in the ever-changing war, any situation may happen, so this assessment will be of greater benefit to your future development. After Los Piccolos told the reason, all the candidates fell silent. Because his words do have some truth. After all, when they enter Qingbei, the challenges they will encounter will be more severe than they are now. But among all the people present, only one person knew the real reason. Can't wait. Looking at Los Piccolos' indifferent face, Zhang Hao said to himself. At this moment, Lu Ruyan happened to look at the brain in her hand, and the news on it made the corners of her mouth slightly curved. It's just that no one found out. Lu Ruyan put away her brain, looked at Zhang Hao, and found that his face was tense at the moment. It doesn't seem peaceful. What's wrong? It looks like something good happened, she said half-jokingly. Zhang Hao nodded. Isn't it a good thing to be able to enter Qingbei? Hearing Zhang Hao's words, Lu Ruyan couldn't help laughing. I don't know if this change is good or bad. It may allow more people to enter Qingbei. If you enter Qingbei by luck, you will be expelled from the school in less than a month. Because Qingbei's operation method is the final elimination system, as long as you reach the dropout standard 3 times in total, you will be expelled from Qingbei. This is why everyone in Qingbei works so hard. Once times drop out, years of hard work were in vain. You can only go to the Logistics Academy. Just when the two were discussing, the second assessment, the final assessment, has begun. Among the 68 people, except for Li Shuibao, everyone has matching strength. This time you are facing the civilization of the demon race. It is still too late to choose to quit now. Once the battle begins, unless you give up the right to enter Qingbei, you cannot quit halfway. When Los Piccolos spoke, his face was indifferent, and everyone could feel from his tone that he was not joking. Mozu, a terrifying race that Zhang Hao has never fought against. The demon race not only has a strong body and terrifying combat effectiveness, but also has many other affiliated races, and the combat effectiveness of each affiliated race is extremely terrifying. Los Piccolos nodded, noticing that no one had abstained. The final assessment starts now. The number of people in the assessment, 68, the time, 60 minutes, the timer starts. Chapter 50. Following the words of Los Piccolos, it fell. The door to the Star Wars opening room was closed, and the time on it began to slowly decrease. At the same time, demons appeared on the planets of all the students participating in the assessment. But almost everyone is facing a platinum-level demon clan, and then leads dozens of gold and silver level Yashas, Rakshasa, Shira. Attack. But on Zhang Hao's Vegeta, there are not only hundreds of platinum level orthodox demons, but also thousands of affiliated Rakshasa, Yaksha, Shira. In Zhang Hao's sight, on the land of planet Vegeta, thousands of hideous-looking horror monsters appeared. From a distance, his Vegeta star seemed to have become a legendary hell. And the leaders of these monsters were hundreds of orthodox demons, each about 10 meters tall, with 3 heads and 6 arms, a face like a bull, and a pair of twisted horns on their heads. There are a pair of wings behind him, and his body is like a cast of copper. And what supports their burly bodies is not the souls of normal people, but the hooves of cows. Each demon still holds a huge weapon in his hand. And behind these orthodox demons, there is a ferocious-looking, burly Yaksha. Every Yaksha has 4 arms, and the remaining Shira and Rakshasa are all hideous and terrifying monsters. The current Vegeta star has become a paradise for demons. Fort Vegeta. Amosi ordered the Saiyan fighters behind him to deploy the fortifications and activate all self-propelled artillery and automatic defense systems at the same time. Positron cannons, plasma cannons, and annihilation beams are also all activated by Saiyan soldiers. The enemies they faced this time were all silver level at least, so the current Saiyan civilization has already played all its cards. Even the ordinary Saiyan of the brass level is ready to leave the fortress to block the attack of the subordinate species of the demons. Because this is not a war between 2 people. It is a collision between 2 civilizations. This time Los Piccolos did not intend to obtain the secrets of the Zhonghao civilization in a peaceful way. Instead, they threatened to destroy the Zhonghao civilization. Because if it could be resolved peacefully, Irene would have done it long ago. So he launched an attack without hesitation. At the same time, in Vegeta Fortress, harsh sirens also sounded. A large number of enemy invasions have been detected, number 3563. All units ready for battle. Close black lens bracket. Amosi and Brawly, standing on the high wall of the fortress and looking into the distance, his expression is dignified. And under the high wall, it was hundreds of Saiyans already in protective suits of the Frieza Legion. Leading the 100 ordinary Saiyans are 10 lower-level Saiyan fighters, and all of them have now broken through to the gold level. Saiyan under the city looked at the terrifying monsters dozens of times as many as himself, and clenched his fists. No one spoke, and his eyes were full of enthusiasm for the upcoming battle. A Saiyan army of only 100 men. The momentum he possesses is not inferior to the subordinate army of the demon race on the opposite side. As the subordinate race of the demons reached the range of the fortress's artillery, the automatic firepower of the fortress fell on the invading demons like raindrops. Many low-level demon subordinate species were shot by the positive electron cannon, and they were pierced through their huge heads before they could even scream. There were also demons who screamed because of their injuries, and were then blasted into pieces by plasma cannons. But more demons are attached. But with the firepower of the fortress raining down, they came to the gate of the Vegeta fortress. Kill. With a roar, 100 ordinary Saiyans, led by 10 gold-ranked Saiyan fighters, rushed into the torrent of the subordinate species of the demon race. Under the protection of the Frieza Legion protective clothing, each Saiyan exploded with a fighting power that was more than 3 times stronger than itself. Fight to the death. They must not touch the walls of the fortress. Kill, kill, kill. Quote. More and more demons broke through the firepower net of the fortress and came to the fortress. So 10 gold-level Saiyans, with the help of Amosi, used Great Ape one after another. After 10 transformations, Saiyan is like a meat grinder at full power. Fists and flesh and blood made terrifying noises. On the chaotic battlefield, the blood and broken limbs of the subordinate species of the demons covered a large area of land under the fortress. Amosi and Brawly stood on the high wall, listening to the roar in their ears, and there was infinite fighting spirit in their eyes. Whoosh! Arrows flew across the battlefield and flew towards the 2 of them, but were grabbed by Amosi and then easily snapped off. Amosi, who dropped the arrow, also nodded to Brawly. Brawly smiled ferociously, his body sank suddenly, and disappeared on the city wall in an instant. At this time, Brawly was like a comet, shuttling through the demon camp. From time to time, the demons were hit by Brawly and flew out of the battlefield. Finally fell to the ground. On the entire platinum-level battlefield, the sound of metal clashes and the roar of the demons can be heard endlessly, shaking people's hearts, echoing throughout the Vegeta battlefield. Brawly on the battlefield. Looking at the Titan-like demons, you can feel their terrifying physical strength, and the overall demons have 3 heads and 6 arms. There are no blind spots. In close combat, it is obvious that the demons have the advantage. But Saiyan is a born fighting race. In battle, no race has yet been feared. This time will be no exception. So Brawly stepped forward suddenly, and rushed to the front of a demon like a gust of wind, and when he arrived, he had already swung his fist. Boom! 2 fists collide. Brawly landed on the ground, looking solemnly in front of him, like a powerful demon like a monster. This punch Brawly was just testing, but the power of the demon's counterattack still made him a little startled. The physical strength of these demons is not weaker than their Saiyan race. And they also have 3 heads and 6 arms, which is even more dominant. Seeing Brawly on the ground, a stern light flashed in the eyes of the attacked demons, and the giant axe in his hand swung quickly, slashing towards Brawly. The axe, which was bigger than Brawly's body, passed by Brawly's side, cutting out a huge deep pit on the ground where Brawly just stayed. At this time, the demon race also realized the seemingly weak humanoid creature in front of them. The combat power possessed is extremely terrifying. So he didn't keep his strength any longer. His whole body surged with demon energy, and he strode towards Brawly holding up his weapon. Looking at the value on the combat power glasses, Brawly's body began to skyrocket, and he had obviously entered a berserk state, but in front of the 10-meter-tall demons. It only barely reached the demon's calf. But the energy surging out of his body made the demons who took the initiative to attack couldn't help but shrink their hearts. Every time the demons reacted, Brawly's attack had arrived. Easily dodged the huge battle axe that was slashing towards him, rushed towards the demons like a tiger, and kicked one of the heads of the demons. So the demon's head exploded like a watermelon. But even after suffering huge damage, the demons still did not stop fighting back, and 3 of the remaining 5 arms attacked MOC. But Brawly's attack also arrives. Open black lens bracket blasting bombardment close black lens bracket. The ball of light flew out of Brawly's hand and hit the demon, who fell to the ground without screaming. All of this happened in the blink of an eye. From the initial temptation to the final use of blasting bombardment to end the battle, it took less than 2 seconds. Although Brawly's sanity is less than 1/10 of the original in a state of rage, he relies on his strong racial talent and fighting intuition. Still able to easily crush these demons. At the same time, the battle in Vegeta Fortress has also entered a fever pitch, and even MOC, who has been commanding the battlefield, has to join the battle. Because there are too many enemies. Even though Brawly held back most of the Platinum demons. However, more than a dozen Platinum-ranked demons attacked the fortress. At this moment, MOC looked at the demon clan with black demonic energy surging in front of him, his eyes turned cold. Open black lens bracket Kaioken close black lens bracket. Open black lens bracket 10 times close black lens bracket. Terrifying red flames rose up. Immediately, the demon in front of him felt that he could clearly fight the man in front of him just now, but the man suddenly blurred and suddenly appeared in front of him. Then I felt severe pain in my abdomen, and every part of my body was severely injured, and I died immediately. From a distance, on the wall of the Vegeta Fortress, it seems that a bloody firework has bloomed. Los Piccolos, who was always watching Vegeta Star from the perspective of God, looked at the fierce Saiyan warrior in front of him, and his face became gloomy. There is no longer any hesitation at the moment. Let the diamond-level demons also join this war between the 2 civilizations. Thanks for watching. Please like and subscribe.